Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Coffee with Craig. Happy Monday. Welcome to the first Monday of the Trump era. So, bound to be interesting. President Trump is supposedly going to be very, very busy this week with a number of executive actions, executive orders. So, hopefully, a number of those executive orders will have to do with our favorite subject, the Second Amendment, and protecting our Second Amendment rights. But today, what I want to talk to you about is something a little bit different. It has to do with a court ruling that came out of the Seventh Circuit dealing with some of the gun regulations there in the Chicago area. Now, mind you, and I'm sure that those of you who live in areas like California or in any major city or New York or Illinois, you started to notice this increase of regulations, of local municipalities instituting regulations dealing with gun stores and gun ranges. Requiring things like a special use permit, and then saying, well, it's got to be a certain distance away from schools, a certain distance away from neighborhoods and things like that, and not really offering any real evidence as to why. What's the point for putting these special requirements on these particular businesses? And their argument is always, well, it's going to make our community safer. We're going to be better off because it's going to make our community a safer place to be. So, with that, what the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals basically said was, if you're going to put these sorts of gun zoning and certain regulations on these businesses, you've got to offer some real evidence that, one, that there's a problem, that these businesses are in fact a nuisance, that they are creating or increasing crime or making communities less safe. In addition, you got to prove that these particular regulations are going to in fact make a difference. And because 9 times out of 10, they don't have any evidence. There is no real evidence. They offer no evidence whatsoever that it provides any real safety. I'll give you an example. We have a case here that we've talked about that's being done by our sister organization, the Cowguns Foundation. It's the Teixeira case versus the County of Alameda. They basically said, well, you can't open this gun store because it's within 500 feet of a resident who doesn't want the gun store there. Well, the resident lives on the other side of the Nimitz Freeway, right? 8 to 12 lanes of high-speed freeway is between them and the gun store, and yet somehow having a gun store there is going to make that resident or that residence or that community less safe, right? Here in the city of Sacramento, when they started to institute a special use permit for gun stores, the police chief got up and basically said, well, none of the firearms that we've obtained that have been used in a crime came from gun stores. None of the ones that have been taken off criminals have been found in gun stores. In fact, they're not a part of the problem. He flat out said they weren't part of the problem. And yet the city of Sacramento still voted across the board to require a special use permit for gun stores. No facts, no evidence, just feelings. Feelings, nothing more than feelings is all they have, because that's how they govern. They don't care about the facts. They don't care about, well, what is actually going to make a community safer. What they care about is what makes them feel good. It makes them feel that it'll make the community safe. Well, guess what? Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals said, not going to have any of that. So, hopefully, as this case moves forward, it'll provide a foundation for other gun control laws to say, look, you can't just restrict a fundamental right for no reason. You've got to provide evidence that supports the fact that this is something that is worth doing, or that, by the way, that is constitutional. Anyway, we just saw our Attorney General, our soon-to-be Attorney General, Javier Becerra, talked about these reasonable gun laws that once again have no foundation because it makes them feel good. So what do you guys have to say? It's refreshing to see our Constitution work sometimes. Yes, it is. What's disappointing is the huge disparity in these types of rulings nationally from circuit to circuit. And that's the reason why I think the election of Donald Trump is so important, because once again, making sure that we get judges who, one, believe in, I don't know, interpreting law based on the Constitution, but also making sure we get that Supreme Court seat filled so that we need to start to have some of these cases heard. They need to start to get to the Supreme Court so that we can actually determine, for once and for all, what does the law say? Government agencies want to make regulations as difficult as they can to comply with so that they have an excuse to take our gun rights away when we're arrested. I think that there are some people who believe that. I think there are some people who are just, they are so anti-Second Amendment and so anti-gun, they don't care how confusing they are. In many cases, the people who are passing these laws they have no idea what they're talking about or what they're doing. They don't know because they're not involved. They're not involved in the details of understanding firearms, firearm regulations, firearm law, firearm industry, or firearm technology. So they don't understand how difficult it is to comply. Or when you do comply, well, they say you found a loophole. They call any compliance that they don't like, well, they call that a loophole. They don't need evidence. They have their feelings. We're not dealing with rational people here. No. And what's the thing is that when you talk about rational or logical, what happens is they're making their decisions inductively. They've come up with a conclusion. And so they only look at or care about or willing to consider evidence that supports their particular conclusion. They're not willing to look at all the evidence and then come up with a conclusion. All they care about is what their end conclusion is. Blanket the country with all state CCW laws and you win. I wish it were that simple. I won't get into the details as to why it's not, but trust me, it's not that simple. Magdalene, please, Craig, no singing. Let's prevent work-related shootings. Yes, my good friend here, Richard, was looking at me when I was singing, and yeah, it almost brought about some workplace violence. So, yeah, singing is not my thing, but I was inspired at the moment. Liberals hate facts, truth, and responsibility. Yes, they do. Where are we at here? Call needs their gun. Oh, Cali needs their gun rights back. Yes, California, we do need our gun rights back. But you know what? Here's the thing. The main thing that we're doing right now, and this is what's important, is that we're fighting not just in the legislature, but we're also fighting in the courts. And it's important to understand the value of those court battles, the values of victories like this. It's a small victory, and it's only it's only one rung in the ladder. It's only one battle in the war. In this particular struggle, there are a number of battles that need to be fought. There are a number of victories that need to be won. And this war is being fought on many different fronts. And the challenge with the courts is that, once again, they're not super sexy and they take a long time. So it's important for us to be patient with the court cases while at the same time fighting at the local levels, fighting at the cities, fighting at the counties, fighting at the municipal. Anyway, folks, that's going to be it for today's Coffee with Craig. You folks take care, enjoy your day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
If you like these updates, please share them with your friends and subscribe to our YouTube channel.